Good evening and welcome to the City of Beavercreek's Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. My name is Glenn Dewar, the Vice Chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Today is November the 13th of 2019. The time is 6 p.m. This will be a call to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Aldhoff?
Here.
Mr. Archibald is absent. Mr. Botla?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Here.
Mr. Durr?
Here. May I get a motion to excuse Mr. Archibald, please? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. On the agenda first is reorganization. I'd like to take the time publicly to say thank you to Mr. Jonathan Hung for serving as our chair and for all his diligent work in the past. We are in need of a new chair. Are there any nominations?
Well, you have been handling it, so you become the chair.
Okay, is that a motion?
Yes.
Motion? Okay.
Second.
Second. So there's a motion on the floor that I would become the new chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? I'll abstain since it's myself. So motion carries. We also need a new vice chair. So any nominations for the new vice chair?
I like to put myself.
So I'll make a motion for Mr. Butler to become the vice chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Butler is our new vice chair, so thank you for taking on that role. The next item is to approve the agenda as written. Any changes, anything that's there that shouldn't be, or vice versa? And if not, do I have a motion to approve?
I move the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? We have an approval of the agenda. We have, next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the September 11th, 2019 meeting. Given that I was the only one there, you are welcome to approve it, or we could table it for next time, plausibly.
Refer to Steve.
Maybe we will defer to Mr. McHugh in terms of, I was the only one here last time in terms of approving the minutes.
You could, I mean, the rest of you could approve it as to what appears to be the accuracy of what is there, but, I mean, realize, yes, I mean, you're not really certifying to the amount or to exactly what was said, because, again, you weren't there. You're saying we're approving it as presented for what it is. It's effectively what you're doing.
So it's up to all of you.
I
think we can.
propose for approval.
Approval? So we have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, minutes are approved. We have two public hearings for today. We have A, that is CU-19-1, and B, V-19-5. Clerk Gillow, if I could have you read the public hearing for portion A, please.
This is case number CU 19-1 on an application filed by Anthony Amin, 200 East Big Beaver, Troy, Michigan, 48083, requesting permission to construct a new wireless telecommunication tower and adjacent equipment building as required per Chapter 158.130B of the City of Beavercreek zoning code in an A1 agricultural district. This is a replacement of the wireless telecommunication facility that was destroyed in the Memorial Day tornado. The property is located at the western end of Graham Drive, further described as Book 1, Page 6, Parcel 9 on the Greene County Property Tax Atlas.
Thank you. Mr. Amin, would you approach the rostrum, please? And if you could read the script, please, and then you're welcome to give a description of the variance request.
Good evening. I, Anthony Amin, 200 East Big Beaver Road, Troy, Michigan, 48083, affirm that the testimony I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Beavercreek is the whole truth to the best of my knowledge. All right, good evening. Congratulations, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again. I saw you a couple months ago. I'm here this evening on behalf of American Tower, the owner of the wireless tower that was at 4040 Graham Drive. It was a 164-foot lattice tower or self-support tower that was damaged during the tornado around the Memorial Day holiday. As briefly stated, and I guess we're starting over, the tornado came through, damaged the existing tower. Again, it's a 164-foot lattice tower. We went and did an investigation, and we have determined that the preference is to do a like-for-like swap. We plan to put a new 164-foot lattice tower utilizing the existing foundation. The ordinance now for new towers is requiring the installation of a monopole versus the self-support tower. Since the last meeting, we've done some due diligence. I believe the Commission has the information that we've presented. We did some photo simulations showing before and after, but more importantly, we did research of the existing foundation, and we did review with the construction manager of American Tower, who's responsible for that area, and also one of the operations managers who was actually familiar when the tower was built. The challenge now is existing right now is the two-tier foundation that supported the lattice tower. In order for us to rebuild that tower as a monopole, the cost would exceed $100,000. We contacted the insurance company. Again, the information's in front of you, but to present to you, the insurance company will only provide for a like-for-like replacement, given the fact that if the Commission does not grant their approval this evening, American Tower would be forced to pay for the tower out of pocket for the new monopole. Additionally, upon review of the area with the topography and the elevations, we would have to go outside, most likely, go outside the existing compound. We would have to clear additional trees in order to construct the monopole. And again, we haven't done the investigation as far as exactly where it would be. We'll put it as close to the existing location as possible. We would have to do the drillings, come up with a design for the foundation, and construct a new tower, the monopole if required. That alone, again, besides the additional $100,000, would be a delay of probably 60, 90, 120 days. We'd have to go out and do the investigation and get the design, get the approvals to move forward. Again, the discussion is it's a like-for-like exchange. It was a self-support tower. We'd like it to remain as a self-support tower. If you look at the ordinance, we have that ability to do so based upon, we don't have the ability. We're here to present to you this evening to have your recommendation to do exactly that. As previously stated, and again, I don't want to confuse people with our hearing 2 months ago, Mr. Burkett basically testified, stated that the residents and the other owners who had non-conforming uses had those granted to allow them to go back to their business as it was prior to the tornado. I'm here this evening asking for that same consideration. The non-conforming garages, sheds, fences, et cetera, that were granted by the city, we would like that same consideration afforded to us this evening.
Thank you for your time, sir. Thanks.
Thank
Staff report, Mr. Burkett, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, the case you have before you is CU 19-1. Again, the applicant's looking to reconstruct the former 164-foot self-supporting tower. Project's located in northwest Beavercreek. You can see it's about 1,800 feet north of where Grange Hall South meets Kemp Road. You can see this is a photo from right after the tornado. The tower was located at this location. You can see the existing access drive from Graham Drive. It kind of fell over during the high winds and was completely destroyed. The proposed location of the new tower would be obviously using the existing foundation, which is about 300 feet from the residential properties to the east, about 150 feet to the large industrial lot to the south, and then there's a house on the existing 25-acre lot, but it's well over 350 feet from the proposed location of the tower. As the applicant stated, they're looking to use the existing structure, the existing foundation out on site, as well as the existing utilities that extend from Graham down to the location of the ground equipment and the foundation of the tower. They're looking to build like for like, as the applicant stated. It was a 164-foot lattice pole, and that's what they're looking to do. The same antennas and structures that was out there previous to the tornado. They also provided some before and proposed after shots. This is from the north. What's out there now is, obviously the tower's in this location, and they're showing how it would look from the north. And then from the east, again, and it's kind of hard to see, there's some tree there, but right now it's obviously not there, and what they're looking to do is construct that lattice pole, and it would be located from there. This is from 2011. This is from Rolling View Drive, which is parallel to the existing, parallel to that eastern property line. It's the next street over. And you could see where that tower was in 2011, and then a little bit further down at Graham, and this is that driveway back to the tower, but you could see the 164-foot tower in 2011. Staff recommends approval of the applicant's request. There are conditions in the staff report for your consideration. Also included in your packet, Mr. McHugh, our law director, provided some legal analysis, and I know he wanted to go over that a little bit, and so I want to give him that opportunity right now as well.
Thank you. Please, Mr. McHugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I did provide a memo. Mr. Burkett asked me to look into the situation, and one, it does provide specifically within your code itself that this board, if you look at section 130 of the code, it's 158, 130 B5, for technical reasons, and I think you can grant exceptions, and with respect to this, I think the city has taken a position and looked at these as somewhat a unique situation. The tornado was not this is not something where people have deliberately knocked down their sheds. They have not. This pole or this tower clearly came down as an act of God, and we have actually a provision in there that talks about additionally that where there are building structures that are destroyed more than 60% by an act of God, act of war. This one has to be an act of God. I think everyone would consider that tornadoes or that type of situation. And additionally, under H5 of 158, 178, under the section I was just quoting from too, under variances, one of the principal reasons that the BZA exists is to effectively vary the strict application of zoning code regulations when there's a practical difficulty. I think, excluding the fact of insurance, because to me that is not the issue. The issue is we have a pre-existing tower. It was an allowable tower at the time it was constructed. It was knocked down or came down as a result of a tremendous storm that caused a tremendous amount of damage within this whole region, and the applicant is submitted, and I think that's what the board will have to decide. Is there a practical difficulty here? If they have a foundation, if I understand what the applicant's saying, they're going to literally use that foundation as the base. I think it was a 3-tier tower, as I understand. They got 3 foundation blocks there, and they'll start building up from that particular situation. So, I do think that this is this clearly was not brought about by the applicant. There's no evidence that the applicant did anything, didn't maintain the tower, put this in a situation where high winds would knock it down. I mean, it clearly was just knocked down because if you look at the photographs, which were in the packet, the whole area there. I mean, yeah, there you go with houses. I mean, clearly things were a lot of damage occurred. I mean, those trees were definitely a lot of trees were knocked down in the before and after picture. So yes, I think if you look at this, I think it is within your prerogative as the Board of Zoning Appeals to grant exceptions, and that's what the applicant is requesting, and that's what Mr. Burkett has recommended last time it was for about 2 months ago, and again this time, and that's what I was addressing.
Great. Thank you very much. I'd like to make three quick points. First, Mr. Amin, thank you for taking the time. I know I had a lot of questions last time, so I appreciate you, sir, for answering those. Before we open for public input, I'd like to mention that this is a volunteer board made up of citizens from the city. None of us work for the city of Beavercreek. Some of us were hit by the tornado as well, so I'd like to make that point. And at this time, I'd like to open the floor to public input. If anyone is interested in speaking, please approach the podium. The time restriction is 3 minutes each, but you are welcome to donate time to another person that will cumulatively equal 9 minutes. And since we have a wonderful audience here today, I welcome public input. If you could simply approach the podium, give your name and address, and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
My name's Randy Bryan.
And can you read the oath on the, I'm sorry. Yep.
I, Randy Bryan,
Okay.
affirm that the testimony that I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Beavercreek is the whole truth to the best of my knowledge. Start off with the pictures are sort of unfair of what he just showed there, what you were showing on the screen. You showed shots before, and clearly if you drive down Grange Hall, you can see the damage. You can see where the tower is over now. You can see all the way back to where there is another existing tower, the same thing back in the back. And then I don't know why you show it with the trees, because the trees are going to take quite a while to grow. Before, you couldn't even see back that far in Grange Hall. Now if you just drive down Grange Hall, you can see all the way back to a farther tower that's on a different property. Also, they talk about it being knocked down. There's several houses that are torn down in our neighborhood. I live right behind the tower, but 3 houses right across the street are completely torn down. When they rebuild, what they're going to do, they have to follow the codes that are out now. They can't go back when the house was originally built and say, well, we're going to adhere to those codes since that's what we had because a tornado knocked our house down. And also with the pictures, it brings up a thing that there's no pictures from Garden View. I drove back here today, and you can see more from Garden View than you can actually go down LeBon or go down Grange Hall. The time as far as that they say they have to remove more trees. There's not a lot of trees left in the neighborhood. There's a bunch of trees that are torn down back there. I don't think removing trees to build a new tower is a big issue. As far as the time taken, the temporary towers have been up there for, since June. And if they have to be there while they build another tower, I don't see any problem with that. They've been there that long. I just don't see that. Besides just what you talked about before, we just want to have a nicer looking tower. That's basically it. We're not opposed to the tower. I mean, there's going to be a tower going up. Why not stay with what you guys have passed or what is the code now? So at least we have something decent to look at instead of more or less it sort of looks like an oil field. You put that one up, you're going to see the one behind it. And it's going to take a while for trees to grow to cover that up. I mean, it's going to take a good 20, 30 years before you get trees high enough to cover it up like they showed in the latter picture. So how much time I got left?
Still 40 seconds. You're
40
more than welcome,
seconds?
please. Yeah.
No, but I think it's a far, I mean, we've been through a lot back there, a lot of people. I mean, there's houses torn down, there's houses being rebuilt. A lot of them started, a reason a lot of people probably aren't here, 3 of the houses that back up to that property, the people aren't there right now. They're getting their houses worked on. 3 houses are torn completely down right across the street from it. So that's all we're asking, just for, you know, a little beauty. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Would anyone else like to make comments? We welcome your input.
I, Monica Donahue, at 3971 Laban Road, affirm that the testimony that I am about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Beavercreek is the whole truth, to the best of my knowledge. I have some pictures. Can they be shown?
Mr. Burkett, if you can. Yep, let's go for it.
Thank you. Okay. I'll start out with, I've been in that neighborhood 40 years. It was 40 years in May.
Sure.
So that was a little ironic there.
The cell tower pictures.
It'll say cell tower.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
6 pictures.
Yep.
Wonderful. Okay.
There you go. These pictures were taken today, and you can see the temporary tower that's pretty much in the center of the picture. That's not the tower. That tower on the extreme left is on a different property. This one, yes, that's the temporary tower. And here's another view of the tower, and again, you'll see, and again, and now this picture was taken in preparation of the previous hearing, and it's an example of the lattice work tower. And then next picture, please. And this is a picture of the monopole. So I ask you, which tower would you like to look at? I prefer the monopole at this point. Besides, it would be zoning compliant. Our neighborhood is being worked on. The houses are going to look great. People are even making improvements on their property as the construction's being done. It's a good time. So, you know, I'm thinking of resale value of my home. They were visible before, and now we're going to be looking at these towers. So I would request that the monopole be approved. Okay. And then, besides the impact that this will have, okay, well, anyways, it's on 25 acres of undeveloped land. And then we're wondering, you know, this will have an impact on the existing homes. Now is the time to make that upgrade to the tower and to be zoning compliant. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, yeah, please, jump drive. Would anyone else like to make some comments? Please approach the podium. Yes, sir, please.
My name is Bill Sheeman. I live at 3971 Laban. I affirm that the testimony that I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Beavercreek is the whole truth, to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I have 5 comments I wish to make. First comment, I read the package, is about the letter from American Cell Tower. They do not claim any kind of hardship. Hardship is a legal term, and they're not making a claim of any type of hardship. This is a company that has $33 billion worth of assets. They have annual revenues stated in their 2018 annual report of $7.4 billion, operating costs of $5.5 billion. That leaves them $1.9 billion in profit. They can't claim hardship for putting a monopole in there. My second comment has to do with the 158.72 section of the BZA zoning code, which talks about what the BZA is doing. I've read the opinion of Mr. McHugh in the letter, in the written opinion that he sent to the planning department. And in the final paragraph of that letter, he summarizes it correctly. In the final paragraph of that letter, he says, I am in agreement with you, meaning the planning department, that the board can find. Those are the important words, can find, not must find. You're not, the BZA is not under any obligation under 158-172H4C to find for the applicant. What that section says is it's your power and your duty to hear and decide, not to find. All right, my next comment is about the memorandum from the law director in the first place. As I read the city charter, a written memorandum from the law department can only be requested by city council and the city manager. I could not find any documentation that this written opinion was requested by the council or the city manager. This is located, this requirement for written opinion is in the city charter, Title 3, Chapter 31, Section 3118. So if someone knows whether or not the council or the city manager requested this written opinion, I'd like to hear it at the end of my comments. All right, aesthetic. My fourth comment is on aesthetics. Aesthetic is a recognized consideration for cell towers. It's quoted actually twice in the zoning code for the city. In 158-130B and 5 under B, and 158-130D1H. The word aesthetic is explicitly in the zoning code. Next point is that there is an appeal process for the applicant if the BZA does not find or does not affirm the proposed resolution. The applicant is free to go to the council and appeal. What that does is that gives the council certain powers to dig deeper into this issue. The council, under Charter Title 3, 35, 1502, and 1503, can then hire outside consultants or third-party consultants to actually determine the cost. I reviewed the file that was publicly available for this case. There were no written estimates from the applicant as to the cost. They quote $100,000. I doubt whether that is the most accurate figure that can become available. And so there are additional remedies or additional fact-finding that is open to the council if the applicant should feel the need to appeal a decision which is not in their favor by the BZA. The last point I'll make is the previous person talked about the 25 acres. This is 25 acres of undeveloped land. Okay? If you don't upgrade this code now, the possible development and the possible homes located on that in the future, they'll be faced with the lattice work tower also. So now's the time to get it done for the undeveloped land and in fairness and in consideration of the people who already live in those two neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Would anyone else like to make any comments, please? This is a public hearing. You are more than welcome to make comments. Yes, sir, please.
Yeah, I'm Roger Obergefell. I'm in Spicer. I, Roger Obergefell, affirm that testimony that I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Beavercreek is the whole truth, the best of my knowledge. I just wanted to state,
May I have your address, please, sir?
oh, I'm sorry,
Sorry.
2336 South Old Oaks Drive.
Great. Thank you.
So I'm not in the neighborhood of Garden View, but I'm in the neighborhood of Spicer. We also got hit by a tornado. So this isn't directly affecting me, but I want to show my concern and support for the Garden View neighborhood, that, you know, I could understand this, you know, seeing, you know, what we went through in our neighborhood too. And I just wanted to state that the other neighborhoods of Beavercreek are staying behind Garden View in support of having the monopole instead of the latticework tower.
Appreciate you, thank you. Would anyone else like to make some public comments? Please approach the podium. Would like to thank you all for your public comments, and Clerk Gillo, may I have any written input, please?
Yes, there was written input. We received an email from Jacob Lynch of 1416 Haynes Road. He requested a monopole-type tower to be constructed. Robin and Helen Horth of 2172 Grange Hall Road insisted on a monopole type or more modern design be built. Mary Osai-Olukowski and Robert Bergsath of 2363 South Old Oaks Drive had no concerns with replacing the tower. And Samuel Bryan from Rolling View Drive encouraged the board to go with a monopole-style tower. And also, the board members did receive a copy of all four of the emails that came in.
Thank you very much. I'd like to close the public hearing at this time and open the discussion for the board. Given that I was the only member present and voting last time in September, I feel like I've asked a lot of questions, and so I'm really going to defer to my colleagues here who are looking at this case with fresh eyes. So please feel free to ask questions of the applicant, Mr. Burkett, Mr. McHugh, anyone that may comments in the audience, please.
I was not at the last meeting, but I read all the situation, and I live in the same area, Spicerite. We were hit by tornado, and my backyard tree gone, front gone, and house damaged. And at one time, I was not able to see my neighborhood because there were trees, our house were hidden. Now I can see the neighborhood from my home far away. So this was a natural calamity, and so the company or anyone individual did not ask for, but that happened. So having said that, this tower has to be, I visited the site today, by the way. I just drove and looked at that. This tower is damaged. It has to be replaced. Now, it's a three-legged tower, three-leg. I know the foundation's there, grounding is there, and height will be same, more material, you know, lattice type, three-leg, as opposed to circular pole, around 18-inch diameter, whatever. So first would be, since you'll be replacing anyway, have you done any cost analysis, you know, to replace all the steel, all the labor, as opposed to having this monopole? What will be the differential? Is the same cost? Yeah.
Is the question to Mr. Amin?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, please, sir.
Good evening, Commissioner. To your question of the cost difference, as I stated, and if I apologize if I wasn't clear, the existing foundation for a lattice tower is in place. As the city attorney pointed out, in order for us to rebuild the lattice tower, we would simply bring in the steel, attach it to the foundations that existing, and it would go up. If we were forced to do a monopole, we would have to design we'd have to do a soil boring to check out the composition of the soil. We'd have to do a design, then we'd have to do a whole new construction. Okay, cost, and with all due respect to some of the comments, it was a letter signed by American Tower by a registered person. They have done a cost analysis. In order for them to put a monopole up, will be in excess of $100,000. That's why I'm here this evening. And one of the comments, if I may, to Mr. Comment about American Tower is a billion-dollar corporation. I guess I would ask anyone, if one neighbor has a lot of money and the other neighbor doesn't have a lot of money, would you grant them the same courtesy? I think you would. If a shed went down and Mr. Burkett saw it was at a house worth $50,000, he would let him rebuild it. If a shed went down and the cost of the house was $250,000, he would let him rebuild it. Okay, so the cost of the house shouldn't impact. The value, just because American Tower may have some assets, doesn't mean that we shouldn't be extended the same courtesy. Again, if the neighbors, that should not come into question here. Would the neighbors want to have an additional charge just because they have a lot of money? No. Should they have compassion in their heart like the city did to grant them variances? Absolutely. All we're asking for is the same courtesy.
Other question would be that what is the future trend? Are you building monopole everywhere? Are you having this three-leg lattice design or monopole?
It's a combination. I'm doing some work for American Tower, throughout the country. We're building some new lattice towers. We're doing some monopoles.
Other question is that, as you see, there's a significant opposition from the neighborhood from the point of view of aesthetic and trees gone and those kind of things. So having that concern, and I know the new design monopole, and we know that this was not American Tower fault, this was in nature. And so there's something that in your heart, do you consider anything that to appease your neighborhood where you are? Could you do something to make them happy?
Again, we'll do the best we can. Again, keeping in mind if we do a monopole there is going to be more construction. There is going to be some trees that have to be removed. The concern everyone has is aesthetics. Well, removing trees to see a monopole, again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. How is that aesthetically pleasing to people that have to drive by? Okay, so can we help? Absolutely, we can help. If the board sees fit, if you'd like us to plant some new arborvitaes, again, depending upon the topography, it's a very challenging area. Again, if you drove by the site, I'm not sure how far down you got, but I think some of the aerial photographs show it. If that would help, we're here to help. Unfortunately, none of us can get the tornado, we can't get back to where we were. We can't do that. We want to be the good neighbor. We're here to be a good neighbor. If it would help, we would plant, some arborvitaes to go around where it's appropriate. And if we had to meet with the neighbors, again, we'll do that. We'll say, okay, well, the eastern elevation is fine. The southern elevation, it's open. Can you plant some trees? We'll plant some trees. Okay, we'll do that. Well, again, we're here to help. We're not here to make this worse than it is. I'm asking the residents for the same courtesy. Don't make it worse on us either.
One last question. Since you say engineering cost, design cost, you have done this monopole other location, and the design would be same, Only thing would be the foundation, how deep you have to go. Your technical report will tell you. So this is not something that you have to invent. It's already there. You have already designed. So I would not say that design cost would be the factor. And as far as the construction, that 3 leg opposed to 1, the differential will not be that significant. That's kind of my view.
Well, again, you have to keep in mind, the insurance will pay for the 3-legged tower, the self-support. Okay, the insurance will reimburse American Tower. If they have to pull up a monopole, they will not. So part of that $100,000 cost is the cost of steel for the monopole. And to your point, you're exactly right. I mean, monopoles, even though they're basically pieces of steel, they are designed based upon the state code, the TIAA code. We have to know whether certain requirements are. So inasmuch as it's a piece of steel going up, the soil borings, the soil composition analysis, that is first and foremost. Once that is determined, at that point, you do a design. After that's completed, then you order the tower based upon the composition of the steel and obviously the design of the caisson, the foundation, et cetera.
I understand.
I hope that was clear. Did I answer your question?
I'm an engineer myself.
Okay,
We
so,
have
yeah.
build the facility and everything, and that's the reason I'm asking.
So a block wall is a block wall, but depending upon
Yeah,
what's under
so-
the ground is going to determine the block wall.
Okay, thanks.
Certainly.
Mr. Butler, do you have further questions?
I would like to hear from other people, and I might have some question later on.
Mr. Porter, Mr. Ratloff, please.
Yeah, I've got a question for the city planner.
Yes, if you can. Yep. Mr. Burkett, please.
Can you go into a little bit more detail on, or a little bit more description on what kind of variances have been approved for other people that have had tornado damage, like they mentioned sheds that have been replaced and they didn't have to go to the existing code, they had to go to they could go to the older code. Is that the same thing if a house is torn down completely, or what kind of exceptions are we doing for those people?
Yeah, I mean, we have a policy, actually. I mean, Mr. McHugh, I believe you were involved in that policy, that on this special exception, if, say, a house is destroyed or has to be rebuilt and the existing foundation is too close to the property line or out of conformance with the existing code, we would grant a permit for that house to be built as the foundation sits and as it was when it was originally built. Same thing with sheds, same thing with fences. Fences are less likely. I mean, those are typically on the property line. So if there was a case where if prior fence was, outside of the code and it was taken down by a tornado, we would grant that. But particularly with sheds, if they were closer than 10 feet to the rear side property lines, and there's an existing foundation, and somebody wanted to put a shed back up, we have granted those in the past, and we would in the future.
Yeah. If I might also, with respect to that also, because what we're looking at, this is not a hardship case, this is a practical difficulty. I mean, that's really what this case is about. It's a practical difficulty standard with respect because of, it's already allowed. A hardship case would be allowed in something that isn't even allowed. Towers are allowed, and your code specifically has a provision that you can grant it for technical or aesthetic reasons. It doesn't have to be both. It just, as it reads, for aesthetic or technical reasons. I mean, that's section 130. So this is a practical difficulty case, and that's really what the applicant's requesting here. And that's what other owners have requested, where they've had, the shed that was blown down, destroyed, and they've got the concrete foundation, and to make them start over means to tear up the foundation, and they were allowed to construct it on the same foundation. The concrete was still good. It was just the walls weren't there.
Whereas somebody's insurance money would pay for the shed, not the foundation, so that, the foundation would have to come out of their own pocket if they were to have to bring the foundation up or back or wherever, remove it, put it somewhere new.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Porter? Mr. Ratloff, please, if you.
No, thank you. Mr. Bartlett asked the questions I had, so.
Wonderful. Mr. Amin, I have two more questions for you, I'm sorry. Appreciate your help, sir. Question one, last time I asked the question about whether insurance would cover any tree damage, et cetera, on the property. I didn't see any answer to that in the package. Do you happen to have a figure or guesstimate or anything like that?
The insurance covers the existing structure only.
Only, thank you, appreciate that. And related then, question number two is, would insurance provide $100,000 towards the construction of a monopole, or is that only $100,000 towards the lattice tower alone?
The exact replacement cost of the last tower, I don't have, but whatever that cost would be, the cost of the steel,
Sure.
they will pay for that. And again, as the comment was stated, would they do a new foundation? No, that's kind of the quandary we're in. The monopole's going to be a new foundation, new steel, everything that is not covered by the insurance. The insurance will cover the structure and the structure only. And again, if granted, we're able to take the lattice tower, attach it to the existing foundation, the 3 foundations, and put the tower up.
So if we deny the request today and we say, let's do a monopole, would insurance give money towards the monopole?
No, sir.
$0.
$0.
Okay, appreciate it, thank you.
Certainly.
When you say $0, if house damage and need to be replaced, and the owner wants to make a bigger or different design, the insurance will pay the assessed value of that building, and the differential, the person will pay for it. So in your case, the damage of this tower and the cost of the monopole, the differential that you pay, rest they will pay. So that differential, in my opinion, will be small. It will not be $100,000 as stated in the letter.
No, well, with all due respect, you're incorrect. Allow me to state it clearly. If we are granted approval to move forward, the insurance will cover the cost of the self-support tower. Okay, so the lattice tower can go up. They will pay for that. If we build a new monopole, zero coverage. The insurance that American Tower has for their towers is for the towers only, an exact tower. So if it was a monopole, we'd have to replace with the monopole. The fact that it's a lattice tower, again, we don't have to. Insurance covers like for like only. So the cost of the steel, the monopole, is out of pocket for American Tower. The cost of the soil borings, the foundation design is out of pocket. That's all. That's why you get to the $100,000 amount. Also, we'd probably have to fence in a new area because from the initial review, we cannot build that monopole inside the current fenced-in area. So we'd have to go outside of that. Again, we'd have to clear more trees. These are all costs that are not covered by the insurance. That's why the dollar amount is so high.
But like I say, there's a resistance from the neighborhood, as you notice. And this is the third time this same chapter, same subject is coming up. Second time coming up. So, and I see quite a few, emails, messages, as well as you have heard people expressing their opinions and also talking about further appeal. So, in that situation, as it being a good neighborhood, I'm just saying, it's something you could not do that, kind of make people happy and then build a system compatible with what else you are doing there. I know it's not your fault. Nature did it, did to my house, did to other people also. But it is something, some extra help from your company to accommodate people' wishes. That's what I'm saying.
Again, we're trying. We're trying to be the good neighbor. That's why we're here. That's why we did the photo simulations trying to show those, and I apologize, there was a comment. I was responsible for picking where those photo elevations were taken. At the last hearing, there were some residents from Bolingbrook and I think it was Laban. So because I didn't want to trespass when I took the pictures, I took it at the intersection of Laban and Rolling Brook. And I actually saw Mr. Seaman when I was out there taking it. That's why one of those elevations was there. The other elevation, I called it from the north elevation, that was taken from Rushton, that street, okay? Because when I was here, I heard that they were also have to look at the tower. That's why we took the time and the effort to show you. This is what it looks like now from that one, from to the, basically, you know, north and east. That's why we took the time and the expense, to your point, to show the residents what they're going to look at. They're still going to see the antenna arrays.
Yeah.
Now the question is it a single pole
Yeah.
that is steel, you can't see through it, or a lattice tower? And as was stated, you're already unfortunately going to look at one lattice tower. Now you're going to look at two. Is, you know, again, that's not great. No one's here to say that that's ideal, but that's what we're faced with right now. Again, we're trying to be a good neighbor. The courtesy was extended by the city to the residents. We would like to see the city do the same for us. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for the exact same treatment that the homeowners had, and they should get. I have no problem with that. The shed, the foundation's there, let them build on top. Our foundation is there, let us build a tower on top of the foundation. That's all we're asking for. It's not perfect, but we're doing the best that we can. Again, treat us the same way.
So if you rebuild the way it was, what would be different than it was before from aesthetic point of view? What, it was a galvanized steel, it will be painted or look more dull as opposed to shining, you know? Height would be same, understand, but how you can make it look better?
The challenge is I can't get the trees back. I think that's the biggest concern. We cannot get the trees, we cannot get the natural vegetation back. That's why we're here this evening. That's the residents' objection is it's going to look different. And again, we're offering, again, to put up a monopole, you're going to see more of the base. You're going to see more. Aesthetically, you're going to see, less trees in between the tower and the residents. We're saying let's not do that. Let's try to get it back right where it was. Make it as aesthetically pleasing as we can based upon the foundation that's existing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Porter, please.
Was that the only tower you guys had that was damaged? Do you have, there's another tower back there. Is that your tower too?
There's no damage to that tower. I believe in a different community there was a damaged tower as well. But,
There's two temporary towers up right now.
yeah, if you see that on the grounds, there's two, they're called them cows, COW, cell on wheels. Those provide temporary coverage to the carrier so we can make sure the residents still have cell coverage.
Okay, and the other tower that was damaged, you said, is that one of yours as well?
In a different community in Ohio, yes, sir.
Okay, and what are you putting up there?
I believe they're doing like for like.
Okay. Is that in the city of Beavercreek as well?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Other members of the board, other comments, questions that you may have? Mr. Burkett, Mr. McHugh, are there any points that we're missing? Anything else in terms of points of discussion that would be useful in making a decision?
Okay.
No, the only thing is that I think if it is granted, I think the applicant did, and certainly one thing to consider is if there are going to be some additional trees planted, I mean, that certainly would be something that the applicant, the extent of that, I'm not sure. But that's certainly, if there are some condition like that, you were to grant something, you certainly could do that. I just want to make sure that's, if there is going to be this permit allowed, then, I would certainly think the board would want to also consider having some of those additional, arborvitae trees.
Sure. Thank you. I believe we have exhausted our discussion.
Somebody back.
We've had the public input at this point. At this point, I'd like to ask for, if there's a motion to approve on the table.
I have a question actually first. If
Sure.
we did want to explore having a condition with more trees or something like that, how would we go about that? I imagine we'd want to talk about that before we,
I believe the applicant would negotiate that with the city. Mr. McHugh, I tried to bring this up last time. Mr. Burkett, please.
Yeah, if you feel so inclined, you would make a motion with an additional condition of landscaping to be provided. And you could say landscaping shall be provided as approved by the planning department prior to the release of a zoning permit.
So you're welcome to do that with a motion to approve.
When you say I make a motion to amend the staff report, yeah.
Well, you have a resolution there too, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a
Yeah,
resolution,
so
sorry.
it'd be an additional, right now you got 4 conditions, A through D, so it'd be a condition E.
Okay.
And I think negotiating with planning would make sense because the full extent of which, not sure we can define right at this particular moment.
Sure, absolutely. So questions on the table, is there a motion to approve?
I got one more question. With the trees, yeah, I mean, trees are only like 20 feet tall. You will still see over 100 feet, from the ground up. And that you were seeing before, and even trees, you'll be seeing the same thing. So if, so that with the tree, they will basically restore to the previous condition. And if that's done, then there should not be any objection from the neighborhood because you are going to be restoring the way it was. So I think that we could have that, could.
Mr. Burkett,
Just to
please.
clarify, if they were to plant trees, they would, I mean, realistically, they'd be planted at 6 feet, 7 feet tall.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
and they take time to grow, depending on the
Yeah.
species. I mean, if you put in some white pines or something, they typically grow faster than a blue spruce would, but, that's something we can look at.
Eventually.
But yeah, I mean,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I just wanted to
Yeah,
clarify that,
yeah,
I mean, I
yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
expect to see
No,
20,
no,
30-foot
in 5,
trees
10 year- 10
planted.
year from now, yeah.
Okay.
Take
Yeah,
time, the
yeah.
neighborhood is different. So, same question is on the floor, is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve with the added condition of the landscaping requirement with the planning department.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I will second it, yeah.
Okay. Clerk, should we do a roll call on this? Okay.
Absolutely. Mr. Butler,
Yeah.
Mr. Porter,
Yes.
Mr. Althoff,
Yes.
Mr. Durr.
No. Vote is 3-1, so the motion carries. That is CU-19-1 carries. I encourage American Tower to work with city planning in terms of arborage, and I want to thank you all for your time and your attention to this matter. Thanks.
I just have one question. You're going to plant trees, and you're going to have, you're going to have everybody do it except for the people that are living back there. I mean, do we have any say on it? These guys are going to approve trees, we're going to plant trees here, plant trees there. They're going to decide?
I would.
It's our neighborhood. I mean,
Sure,
why don't
absolutely.
Why don't we get to decide?
Yeah, I think your input is important.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
in
when
some
do we-
way,
When
yeah.
do we know? If we get a letter
Yeah,
like we did
that-
this last time, nobody knows what it says. Because
That-
nobody knew that this hearing was about a monopole and the other pole. Because nobody could decipher it unless you went down there. How are we gonna know about with the trees? Are we gonna get the same type of letter that nobody's gonna be able to know about?
I would encourage you to work with Mr. Burkett to come to the
Yeah.
planning department at the city. It's open Monday through Friday. I would encourage you to do that, sir.
And let me ask, Mr. Burkett, if you and the applicant determine, X number of trees, if private property owners would grant the applicant the ability to plant those at the edge of their yards, or right at the edge, I mean, as long as we can legally.
That can be problematic just because
Yeah.
if the tree, it's a maintenance issue. I mean, then I'd rather see it planted on property that the owner or the applicant owns or has control of.
That
way
could
there's-
be, along the, between the private
Probably the
property
eastern
owners
property
and
between the-
and the
yeah.
abutting, so right on that edge there.
And also I'd have to see what can be planted there because, I mean, there is trees there now.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, they're sparse, but, I
Okay.
mean, I don't know off the top of my head
But
exactly
that
what's
could
there.
potentially address some of the,
Right.
some of the
But-
neighbors.
Trees are gone.
Honestly, yeah, I mean, I'd have to look.
We'd have
That's-
And there's no tree between the tower, they're gonna put the tower in where it is now. If they had to put a monopole up, they wouldn't have to tear any trees down. They wouldn't have to clear anything, it's gone back there.
Well, I think what Mr.
There
Burkett's
are no
saying
trees
is,
in our neighborhood.
Uh,
All
the-
you gotta do is look down Grange Hall.
I'd like to thank you all for your input. The case is
Think that's
closed. I'd
something-
encourage you to work with planning. Thank you for your patience and listening to us. I'd like to open the second public hearing, V-19-5. Clerk, would you please read?
This is case number V-19-5 on an application filed by Ryan Silcox, 3498 Harmeling Drive, Beavercreek, Ohio, 45440, requesting a variance from Chapter 158, 105C of the City of Beavercreek zoning code, requesting permission to construct a 6-foot-high fence that would encroach into the required front yard along South Fairfield Road. The property is located at the northwest corner of the intersection of Harmeling Drive and South Fairfield Road, further described as Book 3, page 22, parcel 222 on the Greene County Property Tax Atlas.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call the applicant forward, Mr. Ryan and Mrs. Ashley Silcox. Please approach the podium.
Oh, that's fine. You can.
Sure.
I, Ryan Silcox, affirm that the testimony that I am about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Beavercreek is the whole truth to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you. Yes.
So we put in a request for, to construct a 6-foot fence into the easement. Or variance, I guess is what it's called. There's a few reasons that we request it. We are a corner lot, so where they say front yard, it is front yard by code zone, but it is behind our house. The main reasons that we want to put this fence up is we have 2 little kids.
Sure.
We have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, and we have a dog. The 4-foot fence doesn't give us the security and the privacy that we are wanting. There's currently a 4-foot fence that goes all the way to the sidewalk in the easement. But where we're proposing the new 6-foot fence would give 14 feet back in from the easement, giving that back to the city or the county. We will have a licensed contractor do all the zoning, contacting the utility companies that they need to contact. They are bonded and insured. But another reason that we're asking for that easement to be split for our fence is there is a playground area that currently where that area would be at, it would be outside the allowable 6-foot fence area. The fence will, the safety that it'll provide our kids, balls, toys, going out into the road, it'll also, it's safer for the drivers that are coming down through there. The proposed location of the fence will not impede any of the sight lines of the cross traffic. It will be even with the front of the neighbor's house. So they wouldn't be able to, if it wasn't there, you still wouldn't be able to see because of the house that would currently be there. Across the street, on the south side, they applied for a fence a few years ago that was granted. It will mirror theirs to some extent. The different types, but same type of area.
Thank you. Staff report, please. Ms. Pereira.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Before you is an application requesting approval of a variance that, should you choose to approve it, would allow for the construction of a 6-foot privacy fence that would encroach into the required front yard within an R1A one-family residential district. So the property under discussion is located at 3498 Harmeling Drive, and it's at the northwest corner of the intersection of South Fairfield Road, and Harmeling Drive within Section 1 of Fairfield Downs. The property does have a zoning designation of R1A one-family residential, as was stated. And the minimum setback for a 6-foot privacy fence within an R1A zoning district is 40 feet. So as you can see by the aerial photo that we have here, the red line delineates the actual property line. It's a little bit off because of just the way the aerial photo is taken. The airplane was probably taking the picture at an angle. Usually the property line, and more than likely in this case as well, because it is a newer neighborhood, the property line should be directly behind the sidewalk. So it should just be shifted a little bit. So that's where the property line is. So the required distance from that sidewalk would be 40 feet. So you can see here the existing 42-inch picket fence. You can see it in this photo that was taken this morning. It's located just a little bit behind the sidewalk and doesn't extend all the way out to the property lines, but it does go back to this western property line. So the yellow line delineates the area where a 6-foot fence is permitted, and then the green line, which you can see here, is where the applicant is proposing to place the 6-foot privacy fence, and it is approximately 22 feet from that front property line. So when you have a corner lot, as we've discussed several times, you have 2 front yards, so you have to adhere to the front yard regulations on both frontages. As I stated, there is an existing 42-inch fence on the property, and that applicant is proposing to replace that fence with a 6-foot fence. So, as the board is aware, for staff to recommend approval of a variance, the applicant has to justify that the fence can't be placed in a location that does meet the requirements of the code. So, someone can't just come in and say, well, I want this fence here just because. They have to show some sort of hardship as to why it can't be placed in a location that doesn't adhere to our requirements. As you can see by that aerial photo, the applicant could place the fence where it adheres to the code, and it would still address the concerns that they have as far as, keeping their children inside the fence, keeping their dog inside the fence, keeping the neighbor's vicious dog away from them. And actually, if you take, I actually measured the amount of area within their 42-inch fence right now is 0.16 acres. And if they were to adhere to the requirements of the code with a 6-foot fence, they would still have 0.16 acres enclosed by a 6-foot fence. Another thing that they did bring up was the neighboring property. I believe they got a variance for a fence. It was several years ago. I want to say more than 7 years ago. It was the prior zoning administrator. And this is across the street. This is that fence that they're talking about. I'm not sure of what the criteria was for that fence, but as you can see, there's a mound and substantial tree, a substantial tree line, and the fence is not very visible from any of the roads. And if you take a look at, the fence here, the fence will be completely visible from all directions. So that's something else that you would want to take into consideration, whether they're building a vinyl fence or a solid wood board fence. Because the applicant has options that do meet the requirements of the code, staff cannot recommend approval. We have added some conditions. There are 2 conditions in the resolution recommending denial of the case, and I can answer any questions that you have following the public hearing.
I appreciate it. Thank you. At this point, I would like to open the floor to public input. If anyone's interested in speaking, please approach the podium. You have 3 minutes. People are welcome to donate time, so upwards of 9 minutes, but this is the opportunity to speak. So would anyone like to address the Board of Zoning Appeals? Sure. Absolutely, please.
Okay. I, Ashley Silcox, affirm that the testimony that I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Beavercreek is the whole truth to the best of my knowledge.
Sure.
I do understand that by extending the fence to the back of our property, it would give us more space, but that is kind of our argument as well. We would like the most of our backyard that we can because we do have 2 young children. We want them to have the ability to play and as much area as we can, plus the dog being able to have some space to run. As you can see, the playground area, the reason that is there is that is the flattest area. The whole backyard is a hill. So there's no really other place to put the playground. And I know that's not a requirement by any means, but you know, we want the best for our children and we want them to stay active and healthy. So, yeah. Thank you.
Very much. Would anyone else like to speak on this matter? Please approach the podium. Clerk Gillo, did we receive any written input on this case?
No, we did not.
Thank you very much. I'd like to, at this point, to close the public hearing. Board discussion. Mr. Atloff, Mr. Butler, Mr. Porter, please. Mr. Atloff.
Ms. Barrera, I had a question. You mentioned, I think I heard you say there were 2 conditions, and I don't see those. Perhaps I'm not looking in the right place.
Sorry, the resolution, the attached resolution just has 2, oh, it doesn't. You're correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just I was looking at the recommendation. So, no, with a denial for a resolution, there are no conditions, but.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure I wasn't missing something. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
I have a question. I dropped by this morning, actually, I mean, walk along here. I mean, they're concerned because the kids are not enough space for, play or something like that. Is it possible, or code allows that the yellow can be 6 feet?
Yes.
And then provide a gate, something here, so that they can have a 42 inches?
Yes, yeah, it's possible. They could do, they could do 6 feet, all the way up until this point here.
Yeah.
And go 42 inches all the way here, all the way here, all the way down to here even.
Oh,
Actually,
okay.
they could do 42 inches around their entire property if they want to.
So that could be a.
That is an option, and that's, yes, that's something that
happy
doesn't,
medium.
yeah, that's something that doesn't require a variance. They can just get a permit for that.
Okay, thank you.
Questions, please. I have a, so, Mr. Porter, please.
For the homeowners, is there any hardships that you're claiming that why you're moving the fence or putting a 42-inch fence? Is the fence not doing what you were expecting it to do? Has something happened to one of the kids?
No, sir. We actually just moved to this property this summer, and we, with our kids, last house we had a 6-foot fence all around, and we were just updating to this new house, and that was there's no hardship though.
Okay.
Thanks. I have a few questions for you, sir,
Yes, sir.
if you may. I saw in the report you discussed this with your neighbor to the north.
Yes.
Were there any other neighbors with which there were any issues or concerns?
There was no concerns with any neighbors I talked to. I talked to the neighbor to the north and the neighbor to the south.
Great.
I did not talk to the neighbor to the west.
Sure.
But and they had absolutely no issue
Sure.
with it. They didn't say anything.
And there's no one here tonight, no written input. So I like to ask this question virtually every time. Does Fairfield Downs have a homeowners association?
It does not.
Okay, it does not. Thank you. Third question, I drove by today, took some pictures, and if someone can click, there's, sorry, it's
Across
this
from
this
there.
picture here. You can move your playground? Are you able to move the equipment?
Yeah.
Because there's no playground there, but there is in
yes,
the middle. So I went,
Yes.
it's gonna.
It was, when we purchased this house, it was rotted. It was they had to take it down. We're planning on putting a new one up. The summer got away from us too fast.
Sure, absolutely.
You can't really see here, but there is, on the aerial view, you can see where the area of that playground is. That is still there. That is, the weeds are starting to grow there, but it's not growing grass. That's where we would like to keep the playground, because there is about a 5-foot drop in the whole backyard.
Sure.
And it's just not, there's no real place that we can put one back up.
Yeah, I saw your playground is over there somewhere.
Yeah,
This
I
is
saw a
kinda
slide.
Cooking
Yeah.
barbecue or something, over there, yeah.
That was just a little kid's slide.
Yeah. I mean, we had a similar case in September, and in a sense, you, as Ms. Pereira noted, you have two front lots, and so in a sense, there's a difficulty there, a hardship there, I suppose. You're also right next to South Fairfield, which is a major throughway. I mean, the major throughway. And I have 3 young children myself, and so I can really sympathize, empathize with you in terms of this case. And so I'd like to open that further discussion to the board. Any other questions that you may have?
I have one more question too.
Yes, sir.
The suggestion I made to Ms. Pereira, that if they allow the gate, would it be acceptable to you?
I would prefer to have the 6-foot fence enclosed for where the playground will be, just because that's, as my kids grow up, that's where they will be most of the time. And for them playing out there, there's a potential of a ball going out in the middle of the road, the dog getting out into that area. It's a black lab. She can easily jump the fence. She hasn't yet, but she can easily jump the fence and impede traffic. So we're trying to not have that be an option. But the main concern is really the only place for that playground, the jungle gym, is where it shows because of the slope of the backyard.
Thank you.
So you could hypothetically have a 6-foot fence that would cover most of it, and then a 42-inch fence that goes out and covers the playground. You keep the dog inside the 6 feet.
Yeah.
And then plausibly, you can have the kids play in the 42-inch. You can plant some trees hypothetically because I know you have a dog issue in your neighborhood, and that's very serious around young children.
Yes.
Do any of those options sound feasible? Does that strike you as hardship personally?
Definitely not ideal.
Sure.
No. And if they're worried about the aesthetics and how it looks, we would be open to planting trees down through there on the outside of the 6-foot fence, and figuring out what the zoning board, would like us to do. We're completely open to that. We don't want it to be an eyesore or for anyone. We're just wanting it for safety purposes and privacy.
Absolutely.
It is the corner lot on Fairfield.
Yes.
So
Yeah, right. Right down the middle. Yep. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The city has written in the resolution to deny. Is there a motion to deny the request?
The motion to deny.
Okay. Do I have a second? Clerk Gillo, can we do a roll call, please?
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Althoff?
Yes.
Mr. Botla?
Yes.
Mr. Durr?
No. Motion passes. The variance request is denied. Thank you all for attending tonight, and appreciate your time.